Hi, good afternoon. So this is Martha Galvez again. Thanks for your patience. We're going to get started now. I am a senior research associate here at the Urban Institute, leading the Pay for Success Administrative Data Project with Kelly Walsh, who's my co-lead on the project. And I'm here at Urban with some other members of the Pay for Success team and some of our communications and IT staff. And we're going to tag team on this webinar, so you might be hearing from some other voices from Urban's end. So today we're going to talk about the Pay for Success Administrative Data Call for Applications and also touch a little bit on Urban's other Pay for Success related work. We held an hour for the webinar. We don't expect to use all that time. Maybe we will if we have a lot of questions. But we're going to talk for a little bit and walk through the NOSA, and then hopefully have plenty of time for any questions that you might have. To that end, here's just some webinar housekeeping for GoToMeetings. If you've probably already noticed that everyone is muted, but you can enter comments into the chat box at any time. So if you already know you have questions about the NOSA and about this application, feel free to enter them in at any time, and we'll be recording them here and then answering them later. The webinar is being recorded, and you'll have access to it later if you want to share it with any of your colleagues. Also, definitely send us a note if you're having trouble with GoToMeeting, and then we'll see if we can help you out from our end. Just make a note that if you're going to send any messages through the chat box, to choose whether you want to send it to everybody or to the organizer only. If you send it to everybody, everybody will see your message, obviously. If you want it to just come to us, then you can just send it to the organizer. So you can also, if you haven't seen the NOSA or don't have a copy of it, you can find it at the link at the bottom of the screen. So just a little heads up for what the agenda will be. We're going to talk a little bit about Pay for Success generally, and I'll again tag team with Kelly Walsh on that. We'll talk about the Pay for Success Administrative Data Project specifically and the team that we've assembled for this work. Then we'll give an overview of the NOSA itself and of the services that we're offering and of the application process before we go into a question and answer period. Okay. So who's on the PFS-AD team? Urban Institute is the lead, but we're partnering with Actionable Intelligence for Social Policy to provide additional support and services. So the Urban Institute is a nonprofit research institution, been around for a long time, has other complementary efforts in place, including the Pay for Success Initiative and the National Neighborhood Indicators Partnership. And AISP is an initiative based at the University of Pennsylvania. You can find more information about it at the link included on the slide on the screen. And AISP is really the leader in the field for thinking about how to expand capacity around using and building integrated data systems. So integrated data systems might not be a specific focus for your Pay for Success project or for the applicants to the PFS-AD opportunity, but AISP will be contributing some of the lessons they've learned from thinking about how to build and use integrated data systems to the context of Pay for Success. We do have somebody from AISP on the line. So if there are specific questions about AISP, we can see if we can get those answered for you. And so I'll just pass it off to Kelly to talk about a little bit about Pay for Success specifically.
Sure. Thanks, Martha. Again, this is Kelly Walsh. I'm the Managing Director of the Pay for Success Initiative here at Urban and also a Senior Research Associate. And so this opportunity really builds upon the foundation that we've laid here through what we call PFS-I, So that's an effort funded by the Laura and John Arnold Foundation to help guide, design, and assess PFS transactions across the U.S. And a very large component of that work revolves around training and technical assistance. And one thing I want to highlight, or two things, is that technical assistance effort is really complementary to this pay for success and administrative data effort. So if anyone on the call today listening is already receiving those technical assistance services from Urban, you are also eligible to apply for and receive services through our NOSA for the Pay for Success and Administrative Data Award. So that PFSI really tries to leverage the breadth and depth of the expertise that we have here at Urban, especially in areas like health, education, and justice. And essentially, we're going to use a similar model here, but through our expertise in data systems, accessing data systems, and assisting states and locals and nonprofits with their needs in that area. So first, a bit about the Pay for Success transaction itself, especially for anyone on the line for whom this concept might be relatively new. So there isn't a one single definition out there about what a Pay for Success transaction is, but traditionally it always involves a number of different partners, and that could include local government, service provider, a financial intermediary, and an investor. And however those PFS planning partners decide to proceed, one of the goals of it is to shift risk from the traditional funder of what's usually a social service and what is usually local government to a new funder. In some cases, this has been nonprofits and foundations or even for-profit investment organizations. Essentially, all parties agree to a series of outcomes that will be measured by an independent evaluator. And if those outcomes at the end of the day are determined to have been achieved, then the government or the traditional funder agrees to repay the investor. In reality, there's a lot of variations on this model. Some involve multiple repayment points. Some involve tracking multiple outcomes to determine that. But at the end of the day, it's really all about shifting risk. One of the reasons we're highlighting this here is because one of the requirements, which we'll get into further later on, to be eligible for this technical assistance is that the applicant needs to be actively involved in at least planning for a PFS project, which we can describe in more detail in a little bit. So what will Urban's PFS-AD project do? So this pilot in particular is funded by the Corporation for National and Community Service Social Innovation Fund. And so this is the second Pay for Success initiative we have here at Urban through a different funder. And then really over the next 3 years, Urban researchers will work with stakeholders to lower the burden of accessing and using administrative data to develop and execute their PFS projects. Ideally, this is going to help ensure that these projects are grounded in the best available evidence and the best available local data, and that places involved in this effort can really harness their existing systems, or at the very least identify improvements to their existing systems that need to be made in order to get them ready for Pay for Success projects. So overall, the goals are, again, to support access to and use of high-quality, low-cost data, to help places navigate the challenges that are unique to this concept and unique to PFS project development, and specific services. Really, for each site that we end up selecting, we're going to develop an individualized training and technical assistance plan and then execute on that plan. Okay, so now let's chat a bit about the Notice of Support Availability itself, what we call the NOSA. This was released on January 17th. Okay, so what is the NOSA? This is essentially the application process by which you raise your hand and signal interest in receiving administrative data technical assistance services from Urban and from our partner AISP. Again, these assistance services do need to be applicable to an ongoing Pay for Success planning effort. Again, that could be early on in the planning stages, or you could be within actual PFS implementation. But essentially, it's to improve access and use of detailed administrative data. Some key things to highlight is that this is in-kind support from Urban. So our services would be provided at no charge to the grantee, but we will not be providing through this any direct funding. So we will not be actually awarding dollars and providing dollars for an external organization to spend, but the services we provide will be funded by our existing resources and at no cost to the subrecipients. So I want to take a closer look at who is eligible to apply for and receive these services. So we acknowledge that a lot of PFS planning and a lot of PFS projects involve multiple partners, but the main applicant needs to be one of these types of organizations. If you already have a partnership with an organization that is not listed here, that's fine. So for instance, if you are a local government that already has a partnership with a for-profit investor, that does not eliminate you from this list, because all that matters here is really the status of the primary applicant. So who is eligible to be that primary applicant? That could include any nonprofit organization, public or nonprofit universities, state or local governments, tribes, or faith-based organizations. And again, just acknowledging that these PFS planning and execution processes are really a group effort, we want to be clear that if you're considering applying, if you already have an existing relationship with a pay-for-success intermediary, whether that's at Urban or through one of the several other organizations out there like Third Sector or Social Finance or GHHI, even if you're receiving funding through their efforts from CNCS itself, you are still eligible to apply for this effort. This is really meant to be complementary technical assistance to the other efforts that are already out there, especially because it is just very specific to the challenges that surround administrative data. So beyond the organization's status, eligibility also depends on the fact you need to be currently developing or involved in a PFS project. And this could be within the feasibility stage, the transaction structuring, or the implementation activities, which I'll describe in more detail in a moment. And the actual program that you're seeking to leverage PFS funding to stand up needs to address one of these target focus areas of youth development, economic opportunity, or healthy futures. And I just want to acknowledge that those focus areas are rather broad. And so one of the questions we anticipate from applicants is essentially, does your program fit one of these three categories? And essentially that would be up to you to make the case as to how your program does fit that category. And we're willing to review any argument you'd like to put forth to say that it does. But backing up a bit to what do we mean by these three stages of a PFS project? So traditionally in feasibility analysis, a site may be engaging in activities such as assessing community needs and capacity. You may be having early conversations with PFS partners to identify opportunities and specific outcomes you're interested in. You may be in the process of evaluating the suitability of one or more interventions in your jurisdiction. And you may also be in the process of evaluating the willingness and capacity of stakeholders to actually implement a PFS project. So in the transaction structuring phase, the partners tend to focus on all the negotiations around the specific terms of the PFS agreement. So this is the structuring here really refers to the structuring of the transaction and the details of the contract that guides that transaction. And then lastly, PFS agreement implementation. So during this phase, really the terms of the agreement are being carried out. Service providers are administering an intervention to the population you're seeking to serve. PFS partners provide continued oversight, and third-party evaluators may even already be involved. Essentially, the takeaway here is, yes, you're required at this point in order to apply and receive these services to be involved in a PFS project, but that could be at any stage. So early on in feasibility, in the middle of transaction structuring, or actually already involved in implementation activities. So a little bit more about these focus areas. You know, when we're thinking about youth development, this could involve outcomes around success in school, active citizenship, or productive work. So there could be employment outcomes associated with youth. They also include outcomes related to healthy and safe lives. So, and this could also include crime reduction initiatives focused on juvenile delinquency and reduced victimization. So yes, relatively broad, and we'd be looking for in your application, again, for you to discuss the alignment between your program and one of these focus areas. The second here is economic opportunity, really just looking for opportunities to increase opportunities for economically disadvantaged individuals. And then healthy futures more broadly beyond youth into adulthood, promoting healthy lifestyles and reducing risk factors that can lead to illness. And so with that, there is one other prong to eligibility, which I'll hand back over to my colleague, Martha.
Sure. So Kelly just talked through kind of two aspects of eligibility, which is kind of the stage of your PFS project development. It needs to be actively pursuing a PFS project or planning or implementation stage. Has to be focused on these broad issue areas, but also we're really looking for you to be able to articulate a problem directly related to data that is challenging or holding up or that you've encountered during your project development. So that could be related to accessing data, that could be related to managing it, to analyzing it, and to figuring out kind of a sustainability plan for making sure that you have continue to have access to data throughout the life and the stages of your project. So what might that look like? So some examples: developing data sharing agreements with external partners that might be the keepers of the data that you need, developing data storage and security plans, cleaning data sets, assessing data quality. That could potentially be here at Urban for some of that work, or providing assistance and support for you to do that internally, either the lead organization or a partner organization, linking data sets, designing data collection procedures, also possibly some analysis around identifying target populations or specifying outcome measures. And you know, I think we're trying to be as broad as possible, but also comprehensive, and looking to see what we'll hear from applicants about the type of data challenges that they might need help with. So, you know, I don't think there is a typical or ideal set of issues that we would be hoping to see. We're really open to being flexible about the challenges that you're facing currently. But as a note, a goal of this project is really to try to increase capacity in the field to do this work, and to do this work after our engagement ends. So we are not looking to provide ongoing assistance through the life of your project, for example, at least not through this engagement, but rather to try to help you figure out ways to maintain this work or going forward. So from there, we'll talk a little bit about the actual NOSA application process itself.
Okay, thanks, Martha. So for the actual application, we've tried to make this as straightforward as possible, and at least lower the burden as much as we can. So there's three main components that you should really consider. The first being, very practically, your contact information. We really need a single applicant point of contact to be someone, if we have questions, that we could reach out to, who could either answer those questions or connect with the people that can. And within that, we'd also need to see a list of any partner agencies. Again, most PFS planning processes really do require one or more partners at the table. To apply, you do not need to have all of your partners at the table, but I would strongly recommend having at least one strong PFS planning partnership that you can tell us about. And so really the main component of the application is the application narrative. Again, you want to try to really clearly articulate what you already know about your administrative data challenges. So what can you already tell us about what your needs are? To be clear, we're not then going to take that assessment and run with it if we do end up selecting you to be one of our sites. We would be able to add to that assessment by doing our own needs analysis. But we're interested to hear, what do you already know about your challenges and needs? And second, in that application, you really need to document your current level of commitment to a PFS project. And again, a lot of that commitment can be demonstrated by describing your existing partnerships. And then third, in the application narrative, there's questions. We ask specific questions designed to gauge your capacity to participate in this technical assistance effort. So while, ultimately this is designed to assist, we can't do that alone. We'll need one or more points of contact to really work with us and complete that early needs assessment and to determine what sort of systems exist, what sort of access would we need to assist you with. And then third, related to these partnerships is an element that's strongly recommended but not required, are letters of support from other organizations. And these could include intermediaries you're already connected to, potential investors, other service providers, and if you are a service provider, it could include your state or local government, or any independent evaluators you already have at the table. So some important dates. The NOSA was released on January 17th, and February 10th is the last day to submit questions to us. You can reach us with questions or comments at pfssupport@urban.org. The actual applications are due on February 17th, and they're due to that same email address. And we'd appreciate PDF files if possible. So through the end of March or through the end of February and March, we'll be reviewing the submitted applications and scoring them on the criteria that's listed in the NOSA. And then we'll be notifying you via email who has been selected to receive services, and then probably likely quickly following up with a phone call. We'd expect the period of between March and May to begin that technical assistance period that would focus a lot on being oriented to your project, your services, your location, and all with the effort of trying to finalize a memorandum of understanding or an MOU, which will document the scope of the work that we'll deliver to you, and also a site's own responsibilities in terms of being in this technical assistance partnership. So overall, in terms of how long could this engagement last, we do know this would be a minimum of a 6-month engagement. However, it could extend quite a bit beyond that, but it cannot extend beyond September 30th, 2019. We would expect in this first round at least that is unlikely to go that far, but if you're thinking about your own PFS project timelines, again, starting sometime between March and May of this year for a minimum of 6 months, but not to extend beyond September 30th, 2019. And really, if you have any questions related to this application, any of the content of the webinar today, any of questions around the scope of the services through this pilot, or even the scope of the services that already exist here at Urban through the Pay for Success initiative, you can reach us again at pfssupport@urban.org. I do promise there is a real person at the other end of that email address, and we'll get back to you very quickly. Okay, and so we've been doing all of the talking so far, and now it's time for some Q&A. So remember, we have this question panel here. You can type your questions into the chat box, but let's see what's come in so far. Okay. So the first question we have here says, can we apply for technical assistance even though we don't have a PFS funding opportunity? We want to be able to respond to PFS opportunities and indeed cultivate them, but need to do the work on our data systems. We've already done a lot of work on our evidence-based programming. And so I think the quick answer to that is it depends. You do not need to have an existing funder on board. You do not need to have a specific deal that you are on the cusp of launching. You can be towards the beginning in this PFS feasibility stage. And depending on the type of organization you are, perhaps you're a service provider, you might be thinking about your own existing data systems and want to participate. I would say that I would encourage anyone to apply. And the way to really document where you are in the PFS planning process is through existing partnerships. So, for instance, if you're a service provider that has an existing partnership with a local government, if both of those partners are interested in pursuing pay-for-success financing, that would be a place to start. And in the narrative and in your letters of support are where you could document that. We do understand that sort of one of the big barriers to becoming ready for PFS really do revolve around challenges in administrative data. So we don't want to discourage places that are at the very beginning from applying. But again, and this is sort of a qualitative standard, you do need to be able to make a case for and describe to us sort of where are you in your thinking and planning around pay for success. And again, sort of a key to that will be being able to tell us that you have one or more existing partnerships that are interested. Martha, do you have anything to add?
No, I think that's right. And again, informal partnerships are fine, but be able to demonstrate that support.
Mm-hmm. And so there's another question here, again, specific to how is this different from the technical assistance that Urban already does through the Pay for Success initiative. So it is different, meant to be complementary. Overall, the Pay for Success initiative focuses on challenges around understanding the existing evidence base of a particular program or a group of programs, and also especially the challenges related around evaluation design. So that effort really does seek to, again, connect the specific subject matter experts, whether it's health or justice, to specific problem areas, specific PFS funding programs that are focused on those areas. This model is similar, except that it's just a focus on administrative data challenges. And in fact, places that are already receiving support through PFSI are eligible to apply for PFS-AD. I will say, though, that we do expect to have many more slots for this. So I don't want that to be discouraging for anyone who's not already connected to Urban. If you're not already connected to Urban, by all means, please still do apply. And I just want to note again, too, if you're interested in being considered for additional TA services through PFSI, please signal that in your application to us, and we can pass along that request to our other staff on that initiative.
So we have another question here about what are some examples of data challenges, and I'll just go back to some of the ones that we mentioned before and reiterate that we are not looking for anything specific. It could be any range of things having to do with challenges in accessing data, challenges in analyzing data, and challenges in maintaining or developing the data systems necessary to store and analyze on a longer term basis. And again, some of this might have to do with planning and feasibility stages of PFS development, and identifying target populations and assessing data quality of the data you think might be used for your project. And some of it might have to do with work farther down the line in figuring out how to do the outcome evaluation. Again, we encourage you to include it in your application and describe as best you can your understanding of the challenges and any steps you've taken to overcome them or any work to date to try to either access or use the data that you have gained access to. And during the application process, we might follow up with you with questions to talk about them some more. Once selected, we're expecting to do an assessment to understand in more detail what it might take to address the challenges that you're facing.
Okay. Thanks. That seems to be the end of the questions that we have here today. So just want to thank everyone for registering and participating in today's webinar and for your attention today. Oh, did we get a second question? Hold on. Stand by. Okay, so we have actually a fourth question here. It says, we are at the end of a PFS feasibility study. We found that a true PFS contract is not feasible for us right now due to a lack of baseline data to predict degree of positive outcomes that we could expect to see. We're thinking of implementing a data pilot in order to get this baseline data we need, and we would need TA with that. We hope that this would lead to a PFS contract after that. Is this something that would fall within this NOSA? That's an excellent question. I would say if you can show that sort of the main barrier that you learned about in your feasibility study is around administrative data, then to me that does seem applicable. You know, again, this is around designed to get places to overcome those specific barriers. And if you could make a case for, you know, if only we could, you know, address these challenges around our data systems, then we could proceed and have a positive outcome to the feasibility study, as opposed to determining that it's just not feasible at the moment. So I would say in the application narrative, I would encourage you to apply and make the case for the fact that this is the primary and main barrier to proceeding with pay for success planning. If it's not, if there's additional challenges, you may want to put forth, you know, what other partnerships, put forth your plan to overcome those. And perhaps that could be an effort that happens concurrently, either with additional TA support through another organization or through your own internal resources. I guess what I'm saying is if you see multiple challenges and administrative data is just one, put forth a plan on how you would also try to overcome those additional barriers. But if this is the main thing holding you from proceeding on with the PFS project, then yes, I'd say that's eligible, especially if through the feasibility study you've already done, you have some existing partnerships. Again, I'd bring it back to those partnerships, and if those partners are also in agreement about where the need is, that would be something that would be great to see documented in the letters of support. Okay, just taking a quick scan. And I think that is the last question. Okay, great. So again, everybody, thank you for your time. Thank you for your interest. We really do look forward to seeing the applications as they come in. When they do come in, we may reach out to you with questions. And in the meantime, before you submit, if you have questions for us, you can always reach our team at pfssupport@urban.org. But on the screen here, you see our direct contact information. Feel free to reach out to us directly as well if you prefer. Okay, great. Thanks, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your day.